Hello, Frank.
Hello, how are you?
I'm okay. Where are you? What state are you in?
I'm in Florida,
You are okay.
and
But
yeah,
I should let you
so
know
I
we've got this
okay,
recording already, so I can.
okay,
I'll pause it and then I'll.
Finishes up the contract, gives us the construction date, then we should be ready to go, and that will complete our build out.
And before, Darrell, and I know that Brian was talking about in the contract with Spectrum, they didn't like the language about them being able to change the price of it or something along those lines.
I think that's resolved now.
That's been resolved, okay.
I believe so. I double check, but I think now we've got the price locked down between
Yeah.
those two grants. So
Great. Any questions for Darrell?
No, thanks for working through those unnecessary complications in that process.
yeah. Usually working with Spectrum, that's the kind of the rule of the game. There's always something going on there. But this time we can't blame Spectrum. It was probably our fault for not making it very clear to the commissioners that those two projects had been segregated from one another. So no, I'm looking forward to it. That will be really good. That's a big deal, I think, to have a build out, and then we will be,
Yeah.
moving forward to see what happens with, with fiber in the future. But at least we've got the basics now for the town.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Derlin, how long a time frame do you think it might be before the town lawyers review, it gets back to Spectrum, because then it will have to go to the town to approve the contract, right? Are we
So
talking
going
about
back to the
months?
select board.
That's what I mean, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Our lawyer has not gotten it back to me. I got it down to him this week. So it'd be kind of hard to tell you that, Kathy, but Brian told me that Spectrum could wait as much as a year to build that out. So I don't think it's terribly time sensitive. If it waits a few weeks on our part, it probably isn't going to make a significant difference.
Okay.
It would be, they'll just roll that in with their construction schedule as it makes sense for work they're doing down here. My assumption would be, it shouldn't be a very big time frame to actually, to actually complete what work is done, because it's quite small. So, but I can't really give you a good answer on that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So Kathy, I think we addressed item 3 as well. Is there anything you wanted to add from Brian?
No, I think that covered it all. We've got those two areas. I will say that as Derlin just mentioned, someday we may get fiber in the town here. And recently, just earlier this week, there were some consolidated communications trucks around in town here, one right outside our office building, doing something on the pole. And so I asked the gentleman, what are you doing? Because somebody else involved in this told me they're splicing some things together. And I thought, oh, are you adding fiber to our poles here now? That's great. He said they were just doing some things connected to the Main Street project to finish that up. But that eventually he would foresee Consolidated putting fiber in at their own expense rather than the town having to pay in. But it could be years, but it will probably eventually be done. So we would.
It's a good sign that it's on their horizon anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. As somebody who's completely unofficial in this, he said, yeah, if I were in any of these towns, I would hold off investing in it because I think they're going to get to it eventually.
Yeah.
They're going to bigger communities first, but they should see this island as a place that's ripe for building out. So,
yeah. Well, that's good, Kathy. Very smart of you to go out and
flag somebody down in his truck before he drove away.
yeah, very good. I find
Go
that
right to
these
the source.
technicians are people that you really can talk to. They sometimes have more information than the people in the office.
And this is somebody who knows the area and has worked for the telephone and communications company for 30 years, even though the company has changed hands many times, but he's been with them for that long time. So just seeing how things evolve. So,
Those
Hey.
people usually have a lot of signals out, and they usually can tell when things are going to happen based on what other things that are happening, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw when I was driving bar early this morning, I did see a Fidium fiber truck installing along Route 3, right around Sur de Mont and going towards Otter Creek. So that was quite interesting.
Item 4, update on Maine Connectivity Authority programs.
yes, that's where I was hoping Krista Thorpe
Yeah.
from the Island Institute
Welcome,
might
Krista.
fill us in on this.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, nice to see you again. This is, yeah, what you were just talking about is you're in this situation where you have a decision as a committee and community to go for that immediate solution or to wait and hope. So this feels very relevant to what I'm going to share, which is that we are about to enter a relatively short window of opportunity to challenge the data that currently exists from the FCC on how well served your towns actually are. And the purpose of doing the challenge of the current data would be to give the federal government a more accurate picture of areas that are in fact unserved and should be eligible for federal BEAD funding. That's so the Maine Connectivity Authority, the next rollout of infrastructure funds will be through the BEAD program that I just, and that means broadband equity, access, and deployment. And there's a link to Maine Connectivity Authority's information, a lot of information there. So I chatted with Kathy last week and wanted to think about, yeah, what's the opportunity right here for your region as something for you to consider as a committee, whether to engage or do some public engagement related to this opportunity. So we're about to enter the state-led challenge process, which is a fairly complicated process, which is why I sent you to MCA's website. Alongside, and like I said, the purpose of the challenge is basically just to say, hey, FCC, like your data is incorrect as it stands. So increase the number of eligible premises in your region would lead to the opportunity for MCA to then say, you know, these areas are unserved and put those areas out to bid to companies like Spectrum and Consolidated, which would be the most likely to bid on being the provider to serve your area, and their responsibility would be to serve with fiber. Yeah, so I was going to, I'm happy to share a screen because what I would recommend if you do anything related to this process would be that you just put the word out to basically do your versions of public service announcements to get people to take to be individual challengers, to basically look up your own address, get people in your community to look up their addresses and make sure that the data that's on the map is accurately reflects what you're able to get as far as speeds and who's actually providing in your region. And one reason I think this might matter particularly for MDI is that for most of the locations, as Kathy saw on the map last week, they're showing up as nice green dots that basically mean at that location, you can get up to 1,000 megabits per second download over 35 megabits per second upload. And it's that upload that's really probably questionable even in those Spectrum locations, because if you're a cable receiver all the way down a road, you might be paying for a 35 megabit per second upload speed, but never actually getting it. So the way that you challenge the data is by a speed test process. So another value of challenging the data, or another opportunity, is just to challenge the location itself. And I looked up my address just to be able to show you all. And again, I can screen share the basic process of just doing an individual challenge and show you. It just doesn't matter too much. My community was lucky enough to get fiber through a Connect Maine grant a couple of years ago, but I do want to, go in there just for the sake of FCC's data and improve it by showing them that they misidentified my house as my neighbor's barn. So I can just show you kind of what the website looks like if you're interested, and specifically plug in some addresses in your area if you're interested. And again, the purpose of this would be to be able to provide the FCC and therefore MCA with evidence that you've got a lot of areas that are actually unserved or underserved and should be eligible for funding through the BEAD program. And the only way that MCA will have the chance to put your region out to bid to providers is if that data is correct. You don't have to get it for every location in town, but basically if you had 20, 30, maybe not even that much, but if you had a cluster of locations that were showing up as unserved, then that would alert them to, go back to the provider and say, yeah, Spectrum, like all these households did the speed test and said they're not getting those speeds. So, yeah.
So, Krista, just to be clear, the FCC documentation or the speeds that they're saying we can get are actually provided by the internet service providers, right? So they're getting their information from Spectrum or Consolidated, right? Okay.
Yep.
And we did some studies here. We did drive-bys on every driveway and every road in town, and came up with, I think there are about 27 properties that are not connected. That's what we're going into contract with Spectrum for. If we are saying that these services aren't available at these locations, are you saying that federal BEAD money could do this instead of us putting in 135 and the county putting in 145?
Yes. It might take a little longer, but it would require no contribution from the community. Even in the past, Connect Maine and Maine Connectivity Authority grants, communities have been able to be more competitive by putting in their own money. The BEAD program is explicitly saying no community match. This is a negotiation between the public and the private, the public subsidy, this pool of funds. So yeah, and then another thing besides just not having to put in the money is that by going with a provider who is receiving BEAD funds, there would be a contract and a level of accountability to the public, to MCA, but also to the federal government that the provider would be obligated to reach. So one challenge with going with a complete private build is that there aren't really good tools for municipalities or communities to use to hold that provider accountable to doing everything they say they're going to do. I know that Charter Spectrum has built out in communities and done what they said they were going to do, but for those 27 homes. But what if a new home in your community is built in next year? There's more of a level of ongoing accountability to serve an entire area through the BEAD program.
And you said that would be a requirement for fiber as well?
Yes, yeah, the build standard is fiber.
And can you speak a little bit more about the ongoing accountability? So you're saying that if in theory we did this challenge to the data, we showed that there are 27 homes that are unserved and potentially more that are underserved in the town based on real life data, that would be enough potential. And we say that's enough for MCA to bring it to bid, and we get a bid from an ISP. That bid is to serve these identified things as well as guarantee a level of service moving forward for an area, or how, like, what is that beyond?
Yeah, no, and I might have misspoken there. but because there's also, I'm thinking also about some work happening at the the state level right now around cable franchise agreements. That's kind of a separate topic, but so yeah, don't quote me on that, but there is pretty much the service would be, or the build-out would be done on kind of all homes served within a geography. So the work that you've done, you know, to challenge those 27 homes, like, I think it's been very comprehensive, but there's a possibility you've missed someone, and the work that you would do, the contract that you would have just directly with your provider, in this case, Charter Spectrum, might just address those 27. The BEAD like being funded through BEAD would just be a broader level of accountability for service in your area.
Is that like most grants, based a lot on need?
Yes, they're going to be looking to build out the least, well, it's actually not necessarily in this case, because part of the MCA's great challenge ahead of them is that they have to be able to stretch Maine's $270 million. Sounds like a lot, but actually needs to be stretched as far as possible to cover as many locations. So the most remote locations that are too big, there's going to be an exception for costs too much. So the 2-mile long dirt road with only one home, even though maybe at one point would be competitive in the sense that it's completely unserved, MCA will be able to say, those most remote ones aren't. So I think basically they'd be going with the FCC data. If it shows you to be unserved or underserved, then MCA would, put the project out to bid and work with the provider that's willing to do that. So if you've got a couple providers already planning to do work in your region, and build out, you'd be in a pretty good position where it would just be, it would be icing on the cake for them to get some public subsidy, potentially if they already have these plans, but it would also provide that level of accountability.
So Derlin, the ARPA funds, who funds that?
That's a federal fund. That was a COVID era fund that money was given to every town and city
Right.
in the country, basically. So this is the year we have to commit during FY24 to projects, and then by FY26 the projects have to be done at the end of FY26.
So it sounds to me like, Krista, that we already have, it looks like the Hancock County Commissioners have approved spending, giving us funds, and we have the ARPA money to the town. So we are in fact getting funds from federal sources.
Yeah,
for this
we
last build
actually
up.
already have them in our bank account.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think this can
Yeah.
be a parallel process too. I mean, it can be that you're going ahead and challenging FCC data and having your community members do that is something you can just do right now, that won't hurt you. But you could also be moving forward with addressing the very real immediate concerns of people who don't have any internet right now, because those are ARPA dollars. If they were taxpayer dollars, I'm sure it would be much harder to make that case.
absolutely. What a cute baby. Oh my gosh.
Yes, he just woke up, so sorry. But he's the reason I haven't been at a meeting since I realized July was the last one of your meetings.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Just quickly on the timing. So let's say we acted quickly. When is the earliest that funds would be released in BEAD? Is that early 2025? Is that timeline on the site what we would be looking at?
Yes, it would be, in fact, yeah, and I think that the actual build out, they would have, there's going to be phases, but you're looking at the earliest a BEAD funded project, the earliest it would be built out would be mid 2025, late 2025, but I think more likely it's going to be 5 years that companies have to do these projects. They won't get a full 5 years, but this rollout will be over the next 5 years to 2030.
When do you think we would know if we acted quickly, roughly, that we would be getting funding? Like, when would it be awarded so that we could then maybe stop use of the ARP funding? Actually,
Yeah, I'm right. And that actually you might consider, doing a phased plan with Spectrum. But so BEAD service areas will be finalized, or supposed to be finalized June of this year. I'm always very skeptical of those, some of those dates, but again, this is a pretty short turnaround. The challenges, individual challenges can be happening right now. The state challenge process will be kicking off very soon. So by June, you should know if your area is showing up as BEAD eligible, and that can be part of your conversations now with, I mean, both Spectrum and Consolidated will have the opportunity to bid. I mean, any provider can bid, but also just kind of an aside, so far Consolidated has been working with the public funding much more consistently. Like, they've been working with MCA and signing those contracts and agreeing to those levels of accountability. Thus far, Charter hasn't been taking much of the public funding, the federal or state funding, in part because of that accountability piece and challenges with the company. So yeah, quick, maybe I'll just share a quick, like, just to give yourself a little time to maybe be looking into whether this feels like something that you should, giving you the chance to look at the data yourself.
Can you tell us the numbers again? I mean, what's upload, download? What are their thresholds?
Yeah, well, would it be all right if I just share my screen for a little bit and show an example
Sure.
here?
I think
So, yeah, and I'll share my example, and then I'll welcome an address from your location as well. But so I just entered mine. I'm doing my one-handed typing, but there aren't that many noble boroughs in the world, so I get to jump right into my location. And so what they're saying, what the FCC is saying, is it's wrong on many fronts. Right, that's why Patrick is protesting as well. So for one, this is my neighbor's barn, as I mentioned. I live actually up here. So you can challenge the location that they've put you at. And then also over here is what, according to these providers, they're saying this is what's available. Again, I actually have 100 over 100 fiber from Lincolnville Communications, and they're not even showing up here. So the availability challenge, I'm not going to do it, because the only reason to challenge availability is if you want to be built out, and I'm fine with that. But what you can do is either a location challenge or an availability challenge. So if, and you can actually ignore every provider that shows up for your address other than the ones you know. Charter is Spectrum, Consolidated Communications, basically only be thinking of the ones that are on the poles. These shouldn't show up as fixed, but anyway, they do. They show up on everybody's, and you can ignore the satellite. You should just be looking at, so I'll show my neighbor, which does show up, this one does show up as Lincolnville Telephone Company, fiber to the premise, 100 over 100.
And you have done speed tests, and you have gotten that level of service.
Yes. So like, if you've done your own speed test and you know that, and this, it's important to be plugged into an Ethernet if you can, but even on my Wi-Fi, I get 95 over 95. So I know that I'm, getting what I'm paying for. Would you, let's see, Kathy, do you want to give me, and real quick, just the location challenge, the way that I will be filling this out is by saying, well, I've got a lot of challenges, but for one, the location is not within the correct footprint, and then they give you a map so that you can move it. And so, whoops, this is the wrong address. I was going to move mine, but then I would just drag it over to where it actually belongs. And you'd also go down, this is optional, or describe, it's optional. You have to do one or the other, either describe why the location is wrong, or you can use I took a little screenshot earlier, which I'm not sure if it's showing up for you, but I basically used a Google map to take a screenshot and explain in text on that screenshot why the location was wrong. You don't have to do that, but and then you have to say that, I'm not lying, and submit. And that is the location challenge. But yeah, Kathy, do you want to share? We looked at an address together last week.
Yeah, I think we looked at my home address, which is 1132 Main Street, Mount Desert.
Good. All right, so lots of green dots there, and that means, and so they said no location data. So what you would do is you would find, and this happens often, you would try to find, well, I forget now, actually. Do you remember how we?
I think, they are right. There is a Soamesville church there.
Yep.
And they have a slightly different address, but it's pretty close.
All right. Well, I might have to, oh yeah, there's a dot right next to it.
Yes.
You have to click on the dot. So you have to zoom way in so that you can actually find the dot there.
So
There's the dot.
That's us. 11.
Yeah, and so you might be able to do a location challenge just to make sure that the dot actually appears on the address, or that the dot, it says here 1132 Main Street. Is that right? I don't know. Wouldn't worry about that. But the what they're saying here is that Charter Communications has said that you could be paying for and receiving 1,000 down versus 35 up. I don't know what you are currently paying for, if it's that.
Well, actually, we have consolidated communications, and we don't have fiber. We have DSL, and we don't get anywhere close to 60 over 10. So I could challenge that.
Yep. Yes, exactly. You can challenge the availability. And then I would also recommend that that you think in terms of your neighbors with spectrum, especially, as I was saying, kind of down at the end of a lane. Even if there's one house before it, it's often likely that they just can't get that upload, even if they're paying for it, just because of the nature of copper. And so you would click on availability challenge, and you can choose which provider, which data you're challenging. And then you'd
so in the description there, what did it say? Fiber? I see cable, I see copper. What fiber, if that existed?
It's not, no provider is claiming to provide fiber in this location right now. If that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
Does.
When you say in this location, do you mean in your location or in our location that no one is providing fiber? Sorry, I'm a little confused by that.
Oh, yeah. I'm sharing a screen right now, and I'm on Kathy's address, and so that location. So that location has on the FCC map, you can click on the location, say that you want to challenge it, and look at the availability that the FCC has on data, and then you can basically, you're going to, don't be afraid to make it a real challenge versus just don't just do feedback.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was a little confused there. Thanks.
No problem. And so you would enter your information, and then the reason would be Provider does not offer the speed reported to be available at this location. Say a little something about that.
And you would
And
do speed tests, right?
well, for this process, which you can do right now, you won't. The
Okay.
state has the separate speed test process that unfortunately is still coming soon. And that's because it needs to link to the FCC and there's a delay in getting that approved. So there is a process that I could send more information about in plain speak as soon as it is available. But for now, this availability challenge is the one thing you can be doing right now to just help update that data and potentially potentially get your region recognized as being worthy of more of that funding that's coming to the future proof the fiber build.
Some time ago, we did a round of surveying, pushing people to do a speed tests, and it was through the Maine Broadband Coalition. And are they, since the state speed test is not available, is the Maine Broadband Coalition, the old tests, are those still available?
They might be through NBC's website, but that was such a valuable speed test process. It gave the state the ability to do an earlier challenge, like to use data and get Maine's allocation up from 240 million to 270 million. So thank you for doing that, but that will not count for this BEAD challenge process. The reason the MCA speed test is still forthcoming is because it needs to be the official one that the feds approved.
So we should wait until that is officially approved and available from the MCA site and then start pushing speed tests.
Speed test through that, yep, and through a process. But in the meantime, people can do their own speed tests and challenge the data just based on your speedtest.net or NBC speed test. So yeah, good. That's a good point. Kathy. So
Speedtest.net.
Yeah, that's the one that I used.
All right. And the other question about that is, if there are, as we had identified, 27 different locations that don't have anything to them, how do you challenge that? You can't do a speed test because there's nothing there.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, you'd possibly just showing a picture. Like if you did that, I wouldn't worry too much about showing the documentation. It's pretty much the required elements of the challenge are just, oh, hey, look, Patrick, there's another kid. The required elements of the challenge are just what I showed you, just description. Anybody can do a challenge. And the point is the more the challenges, are cropping up in a certain region, then the FCC tells Charter, hey, a bunch of people are challenging your data. And Charter might know that it's you, like they're people shouldn't be afraid of like retribution or anything, but there will be a process of FCC going back to the provider to let them know people are challenging you. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, my clock might be running out a little bit,
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
but I wanted to at least put this on your radar and say that I will. Tomorrow, there'll probably be a discussion on this topic at the Maine Broadband Coalition weekly Let's Talk Broadband call. I can forward, if people aren't familiar with that, I can just send over the Zoom link to join if you're interested, but otherwise just stay posted.
Friday?
And yeah, that's every Friday. Yeah. NBC sends it out in their newsletter, the link. And I think it's also on, it's right on Maine Broadband Coalition's website, actually. So I'm guessing that's going to be one of the just topics of informal conversation, and Miles is better than I at kind of describing, this moment and this opportunity and what you can do in your community. But I'd say start with your addresses, start with, your outreach to people who you know care about this topic. And I'll keep you posted on just that bigger process of proving it through the Maine state speed test and,
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Krista.
yeah, thank you. And yeah, the
Thank you.
major takeaway is keep working on all the good things you've been doing as far as utilizing those ARPA dollars and everything, but don't miss out on potentially more investments for your area.
Okay, terrific.
All right, great. Thank you. Cute baby.
Yes. It's the kids' time. Having
Yeah.
he's tired too.
I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes. Do we have anyone Tremont Broadband? I don't believe so, do we?
Nobody here from Tremont.
Yeah. Next steps. I mean, it seems to me that we have the funding in place to finish our build out, right? I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to try to.
We should just keep moving with the plan we have in place.
I think so. That's just my opinion. I mean, if it were like local taxpayer money, maybe we'll rethink it, but seems like we're tapping into federal funds, just like that other program would tap into federal funds.
God, I agree. I think we just stay the course.
Okay, are there next steps, Kathy?
Yeah, I think that staying the course, that we need to, that Derlin and Brian will work through the contract. We'll get those things before the Board of Selectmen to accept the county funds and dedicate the local ARPA funds. And that's on April 2, right, Derlin?
Yep. That's what we're looking at, Kathy.
Okay. And
Any other
Derlin,
next steps?
any of us need to be there?
If you want to come, but I don't think it's going to be controversial.
Okay.
I don't think they've never really challenged anything we proposed on our ARPA funding, and it's sort of an odd amount that we've got left, so this would be a good way to utilize it, because if we don't, so I don't think it's going to be a big heavy lift. I wouldn't see why it would be, because there's no local tax dollars going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other steps, Kathy, before I?
The only other thing I'd say is I'm going to be away on April 11, which is our next meeting. And I don't know if somebody else would like to host it, take over. I'm going to be out of state. And yeah, get to go see my baby again. So
Oh, cool. Is that in Vermont?
Well, I do wonder because, so Derlin, we probably won't have when would be the next selectman meeting after the 2nd?
Oh, let's see here. It's the April 16th, which is a Tuesday because of the Patriots' Day holiday. That would be the next meeting of the select board.
So it could very well be, that meeting could very well to accept the contract, right?
Could be, yeah. It would be nice if that were the case. It's very possible.
So I just wonder, Kathy, we want to do like the 16th anyway.
sure. That would be fun. Well, the 16th is that's the day of the selectmen's meeting.
Or
Is that what you say? Or
Yeah.
how about 2 days
Yeah.
later, April 18th?
I meant they're meeting on a Tuesday.
This time because of Patriots' Day, which is a holiday.
Yeah, so I meant the following Thursday, I guess, whatever that is.
The 18th. That I think would work for me.
April
Just because we
18th.
could, at that point, we could have more news, I would think.
April 18th is what you're looking at, which is that Thursday after their meeting.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll put it down on my calendar.
I have a trip that is from about the 12th to the end of the month that I've gonna have to go to Philadelphia for a little bit, so I wouldn't count on me other than I might be able to phone in, but it's unlikely. So,
Okay,
thanks.
all right, I have about, well, I'm running out of time, but I think we're ready to adjourn anyway. Kathy?
Are we going to say it's definitely going to be the 18th?
Let's do the 18th.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank
All
you.
right, everyone, thank you. Sorry I have
Thank
to
you very
rush.
much. Have a great
All right.
weekend,
Thanks,
Kevin.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.